All right, so you've gone under contract and you found the home that you want to buy, but you can't decide on which home inspector you want to go with. There's 3 questions that you need to ask your home inspector in order to narrow down the field of options, if you will. There's a ton of home inspectors to choose, especially if you live in a populated area. And these 3 questions are going to help you decide on which home inspector you actually want to go with. All right, so question number 1 should be, do you want me to go to the inspection? The answer is yes. Every home inspector should say yes to this question. The reason being is that gives us as home inspectors an opportunity to explain the problems that we find on the house. So the state, depending on which state you're in most cases, a state will have certain guidelines. And each state is different, of course, but for example, North Carolina is one of the stricter states when it comes to home inspections and our processes, and especially when it comes to actually reporting on the problems that we find on a house, whether it's something small like a sink stopper or something large like a major structural issue. We have to give some sort of direction. And that's usually in the shape of either a general contractor or a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber. And the reason the state mandates that is simply because if you as a buyer go to ask the sellers to do certain repairs for you, then we want to make sure that those sellers don't have the option of just choosing whoever they want, right? We want to keep them to a certain standard. And that helps to eliminate any problems from arising. Essentially, it eliminates sellers from taking the least expensive route out. So it's a very important question to ask, and it helps determine how serious your home inspector is about giving you information on this house, or whether he's just going out there and just doing his job. So it's important to go to the inspection to be able to talk to the inspector so that home inspector can take that home inspection hat off, right? And explain to you in realistic terms, is this an important item? Is this not an important item? Yada, yada, yada. So you get the inspector's take on the particular items. Most inspectors are going to go through a recap. I think that's important to make sure of, kind of group it with that first question, right? They have an in recap. They go through all the pictures, and it's certainly something that we do as home inspectors. All right, so the next question that you want to ask your home inspector is, what is their process for inspecting roofs? Do they use a drone? Do they use field glasses from the ground? Or do they actually get up on the roof, put their 2 feet on the shingles? And now, this is referring to asphalt shingles. The answer should be walking the roof. You don't see roofing companies come out and give you a detailed estimate on repairs or replacement without walking that roof. I've never seen a roofing company bring a drone out and do a full inspection just through a drone or a set of field glasses. Now, they may do a combination of both, but that combination always includes walking that roof. I think it's important. If you've walked a lot of roofs, you can essentially tell how old the roof is just by putting those shingles under your feet. I think that's a very important part of the process. And most people, most buyers out of the industry expect a home inspector to walk the roof. But believe it or not, it's not a state requirement, at least not in the state that we're at in North Carolina. So even though it's not a requirement, it is a requirement company-wide with Clearview Home Inspection that we walk roofs. It's something that's very important to us as a company, and I think that it should be important to you as a buyer that your home inspector walk a roof. And one of the biggest reasons why that's important is it lets you know the level of commitment that home inspector has. I can guarantee you if the home inspector has a no-walk roof policy, he's not going to crawl every inch of that crawl space for you. I can guarantee that. So it kind of lets you know what kind of caliber inspector you're dealing with, right? And of course, this is one of the most expensive purchases that someone could ever make. So you want the highest caliber you can find, right? You shouldn't be price shopping. We got to make sure that these questions are answered and answered correctly to get a good home inspector in to do that home inspection. There's a lot of inspectors out there that have a lot of book knowledge, but when it comes to actually going out and doing the inspection, They don't know why the water is coming into the crawl space. They don't know why that gutter is causing so many problems and so many cracks on all of your foundation. They just don't know. And you have to weed through the bad inspectors. And one of the best ways to weed through them is ask them just a couple of questions. All right, so the last question number 3 that you want to ask your home inspector is, what's your turnaround time on reports? Now, the answer should be 24 hours. Hands down, there should be 24 hours or less. Now, there's a lot of inspectors out there that will actually finish the reports before they leave the home during the inspection. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something that we don't do, or I don't do, simply because I want to marinate on that house. I'm going to go to bed that night thinking about that home inspection. And I want to make sure that everything I put in that home inspection is to the best of my ability, crossing my T's, dotting my I's. It's important that I sleep on it before I make any kind of decisions on putting stuff in the report. So, but every inspector should have their reports done and out and back to you within 24 hours. That's something that asking that question kind of gives you an idea of their level of commitment as well. Now, something that would render that or keep a home inspector from turning an inspection report in 24 hours is a lot of home inspectors don't use writing software built specifically to write home inspections. And I think that can play to a disadvantage to a buyer simply because over the 10 years that I've done home inspections, I create statements, right? So if I find something wrong with a sink that's common, I'll create a statement, and all I have to do is hit a box the next time, right? As long as I save that statement in my software. And over the last 10 years, I've built up this software to be so specific on every single thing that we find on homes. It helps you create a more consistent pattern or process, and with consistency comes quality. So, very important question to ask. And all 3 of these questions are very important questions to ask your home inspector. It'll help you narrow down out of the vast amount of home inspector choices that you have nowadays.